Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Point San Pedro Road Coalition's 2021 Spring Community Meeting. We're so glad that you could join us this morning, and we have a very full agenda, and I am going to be delighted to introduce some of the folks that will be speaking today. And we have had quite a year and even quite a lot happening since our last community meeting in the fall. In the fall, we had our regularly scheduled meeting, but it was by Zoom. We usually have a fall annual meeting. That meeting was curtailed because of the limitations of the Zoom format that we had to use. Instead of having everybody gather personally and have a longer meeting, we made it shorter. So we decided to come back in the spring and invite Mayor Kate to return because she had so much information to impart to us and not enough time in our short format. So we asked her to come, and we also asked the Vice Mayor, Maribeth Bushey, to join us today. And we're delighted to have her as well. And there have been so many changes. She's now our representative on the City Council from the newly drawn district that includes our neighborhoods. So we are welcoming Mayor Kate and Vice Mayor Bushey today, and we have so much more to tell you about from our committees who've been extremely active, especially during COVID. It's just been a great year. So all year, and especially just recently. So I wanted to tell you just a little bit about our agenda today. We're going to be starting out by some comments that we wanted to make. We are very pleased to honor 3 members of our community, members of our service area. We have the former Mayor Gary Phillips, former Councilmember Andrew McCullough, and Paul Jensen here. And we are going to be saying just a few words about each of them to recognize and express our gratitude for their service to our community. So these tributes are coming up next. And following that, we're going to be hearing from our committee chairs who will be telling you about what they have done. They are our hardworking committee chairs. They work with hardworking committee members, all volunteers from our area. And we have just done so much. It's going to be exciting to hear what they have to tell you and to share. And then we will be then listening to the comments of the mayor and vice mayor. We'll have some time for Q&A. We have the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can send in questions. I see somebody has already sent in one question, so feel free to do that. I just want to say a few words about our hardworking board members and our committee chairs who deal with issues big and small. I mean, this neighborhood, this area, this corridor, this peninsula just has a bit of everything. And as we know, or you should know, this weekend there's red flag warnings. There's high fire danger. We've got a drought. We've got all the things coming together that make us want to be sure that we are prepared for potential fires. And so we are delighted that our disaster prep committee has been helping our neighborhood groups, neighborhood organizations get organized, and you'll hear about that. So, you know, we deal with big issues: wildfires, sea level rise, flooding, air and water pollution, restoring wetlands, traffic, bike and pedestrian safety, housing and development and planning, mosquitoes and weeds, everything from big to small. And so there is just such a variety of information, you know, that we try to stay up on, and we encourage our residents to let us know your issues, let us know your questions, let us know what you want us to help you with. You know, we do submit letters on issues of importance to our community. We send them in on EIRs. We send them to the City Council. We write to BCDC. We're in touch with all the local agencies and regional agencies there as issues arise. We meet regularly with Damon Connolly, who is our representative on the Board of Supervisors, and he's not here with us today. He was here in the fall. This meeting is because it's curtailed. We wanted to have a little more time to go in depth on issues that mainly involve the city. So, but we do meet regularly with Damon Connolly, and we've now started meeting on a regular basis with Vice Mayor Maribeth Bushey, because she's our representative on the City Council. So we want to thank our neighbors for alerting us to issues. And, you know, one example was a neighbor who happened to see some folks out at Bayside Park with clipboards, and wrote to us and said, hey, what's going on over there? And the development at Bayside Park Bayside Park, the little pocket park at Maine, has been torn up and trees removed, and it created some controversy, but it's going to be a really wonderful spot. It is an ADA compliance project for the county. And, you know, we got involved early on because a neighbor drew our attention to that, and we made comments on Nextdoor. We let people know about this happening. We submitted comments to the Parks Commission. So let us know what you see. If you see something, whatever it is, we will try to follow up on it. We also wanted you to know that just a little update about the Bayside Park. You know, that parking at the park along the strip there is going to go away. And so we are trying to work with the county. We've met with the county. We did a Zoom with all the folks involved with that project, trying to figure out how people are going to access that ADA accessible park once all these wonderful improvements are done and trees are planted and everything is there and it's accessible on the park site for people with the handicaps and disabilities. How are people going to get there? Where are they going to park? So unfortunately, BCDC changed things. Their permit says there has to be a there has to be a dedicated bike lane. So that is going to take out all the parking, and efforts are going to figure out how to address these issues to ensure that people can park there. There will be eventually handicap parking there, we hope. So we're working on issues like that. Whatever we do, we could not do without our hardworking committee chairs, as I said. I would just like to thank John Lenzer for all of his efforts on the disaster prep committee. It has grown. It has encouraged neighborhoods to become firewise communities, and it's provided training so our leaders in each neighborhood can go back and form neighborhood response groups. People are sharing information. It's a great resource. I'll let John tell you more about that. Winifred DeJohnny on wetlands has just had one great event after another during COVID, where we're learning about our precious wetlands and all kinds of related issues. Winifred will fill you in on that. It's been very exciting. And of course, this information is available. The events are on our YouTube channel, so want to direct you to that. Dave Crutcher is going to be especially busy coming up on quarry issues. The quarry has applied for a 20-year extension of their permit. And so Dave will talk to you about the status of that application and more. And then there's some crossover between the quarry wetlands and the quarry reclamation and operation. So lots going on with regard to the quarry, and we've been meeting with quarry team. We've met with them a couple of times, and so we're trying to collaborate and work hard to make sure that the quarry is a good neighbor for us and that they take good care of the wetlands, and lots of kinds of conversations going on there. Kevin Haggerty's got his hands full with traffic and all kinds of issues he'll tell you about. He keeps on top of. He has so many meetings with all the relevant agencies, and he's got some great plans coming up. I want to give a shout out to Jim Dixon, his subcommittee chair on the medians, who also is very involved. And then last but not least is Alan Shavitz. He is not only the chair of the Loch Lomond Marina Committee, and he'll fill you in on all their activities, but he also is our webmaster, and our webmaster does so much more. And he is also behind the scenes here today. Thank you, Ellen, for all you do for our coalition. I am going to now turn over the mic to John Lenzer, who's going to give you his comments.
Good morning. I'm glad to be with you once more on Zoom. I feel like this last year we've achieved a lot, but it's always been with one arm tied behind our back. It's hard to get meetings, hard to meet with people in person, but a lot has been accomplished. As you know, we live in a unique community in that we have one road going through our community, Point San Pedro Road, from one end to the other. And we have the potential of major disasters, both with earthquakes and with fire. And it could be potentially very difficult to exit our area in the event of either of those types of disasters. And we have been addressing both the earthquake and fire issues for now over a year. And I just want to go over some of the accomplishments that our committee has achieved. And it's been a hardworking committee, and much was going on before we started our committee. And I congratulate those HOAs that were very active, Glenwood, Peacock, and others that had a lot going on before our committee really jumped in. But about a year ago, we raised over $14,000 for disaster and medical supply purchases, both from private donations from the community and from a county grant. We're currently in final negotiations for 3 evacuation and storage sites, San Pedro Cove, Glenwood Elementary School, and the Peacock Golf Course. We hope additional sites might include the Marin Yacht Club, Loch Lomond Marina, and Dutra's Quarry. These would be sites where people can flee to, where their CERT people would respond and would hand out supplies and would hand out tools and what have you that could deal with fires, deal with rescue, and what have you. We facilitated an agreement between the Red Cross and Peacock Golf Club to set up a primary evacuation and triage site where they would open the golf course facilities to the Red Cross. The Red Cross would arrive with their supplies, and we would all have that as a resource in our community. We've been providing training for HOAs to organize neighborhood disaster response programs in firewise communities. There are strong response programs developing in Peacock and Glenwood. Peacock, Glenwood, Country Club, and Bayside Acres have become firewise communities. Others are in the process of becoming firewise communities if they haven't completed the process already. And that's of critical importance. We had a major Earth Day event that was led by Bonnie. On April 24th, she organized a weed pull. Over 60 people participated, including the San Rafael Fire Department Vegetation Management Team, a partnership with Center for Volunteers and Nonprofit Leadership, and Friends of China Camp. So it was really a multi-agency organization type of effort, and a lot of work was achieved. We provided training sessions. These were led by Quinn Gardner from the City of San Rafael's Fire Department on 1 hour to get ready, also HOA Organization for Disaster Preparedness. And later this summer, once things open up a bit and we can meet again in person, we're planning to host additional training sessions on first aid for disaster response and also CERT training. You can view the training sessions on the Coalition's websites. So if you want to see the 1 hour to get ready session put on by Quinn, which is very, very helpful as to what you as an individual homeowner can do, go to the website and view the program. The next meeting of the Disaster Preparedness Committee is going to be on Saturday, May 22nd, 10 a.m. via Zoom. If any of you would like to join the committee or attend the committee, feel free to do so. You can simply email me at john@lenzer.com. I have a very simple email address, john@lenzer.com, and I'll be happy to send you a Zoom invite. But thank you very much, and we hope to do much more during the next year.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that great report and all the work that you and the committee members do. I have to apologize to everyone. I completely jumped the gun on introducing John. What I should have done is introduce my co-president, Denise Lucy, who is going to start off introducing the honorees, the first honoree. So let's get back to the honorees and then go on and get back on track on the agenda. My apologies. Denise Lucy, Denise, can you take it away? Come up, here you are. Thank you so much. I'm gonna have her introduce our former mayor. Denise, are you, there she is. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Denise, you're muted. You're muted.
Thank you so much, Bonnie and John. It's my privilege to begin our appreciations this morning. And I want to speak to you directly, Mayor Phillips. Mayor Gary Phillips, you have served the residents of San Rafael proudly as our mayor. And you know, San Rafael is Marin's largest city, and it's the county's only city where citizens elect a mayor. And you were elected more than once. And prior to that, you served 12 years on the city council and 3 years as vice mayor. You were among the longest serving mayors of San Rafael in the past century, serving us for a decade. And you have consistently and generously given your Saturdays to us for that decade by presenting at our coalition annual meetings like this one. And you brought your key staff with you, and you and they informed us of major initiatives and addressed our neighbors' questions. And then we really appreciate too, that you convene monthly meetings with the San Rafael's Neighborhoods Association so we could exchange among us about key issues and solutions across the entire city. You listened well to our neighborhood's perspectives. And these meetings allowed us, among the various groups, to learn from other neighborhoods and exchange with one another. And prior to and during your mayoral role, you were on many community groups and nonprofit boards, a list that is just so long, but I'm going to name a couple things, like 8 years on the Dixie School Board, where you served for 2 years as president, 3 years as the San Rafael Planning Commission. You've been on the San Rafael Chamber, the Dixie Youth Soccer, Terra Linda Homeowners Association, and many, many more, Lifehouse. All of this service was followed by your role as a business owner and a professional CPA. Mayor Phillips, you are a person of service. You are a person of substance, and we appreciate you and your service. So now we know that you'll be able to go hit some balls on the golf course, which I understand you're a single-digit handicapper, and maybe take some flights in your airplane and maybe race your cars. Thank you so much for your long-standing service. You are a good neighbor. Thank you so much.
Well, Denise, let me thank you, and pardon me, and of course Bonnie and the entire Point San Pedro coalition for all you've done for the community. Your heart's in the right place. You guys are remarkable with regard to your input, because it's always in the best interest of not just your particular area, but certainly San Rafael in its entirety. So it was a pleasure dealing with your group individually and collectively. Couldn't have been more pleased to join you on the occasions. Personally, it was more fun than Zoom, but nevertheless, I appreciate greatly the recognition that you've offered. It means an awful lot, and to be joined with Andrew and Paul, I couldn't get better than this. And so I thank you so much for all that you've done, and for the privilege of serving San Rafael in some of the ways you've outlined. And thanks for doing so. It's nice to remember. Nice for me to remember each of those. And so I thank you for that once again. So once again, thanks to everyone for all you've done, and continue the great work you're doing as previously outlined by Bonnie. There's a lot going on, and you'll address it in the most positive and constructive way, I know. So thank you once again. I'm honored and privileged to be here today. And I look forward to listening to part of the presentation. I do have something at 10. You mentioned golf. Well, maybe, but nevertheless, life after is not all that bad. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mayor Phillips.
Kevin, I think is next. Kevin, are you muted?
You seem to be muted, Kevin. Actually, you're not muted according to the system, so you've got a problem with your sound.
While he works on that, do you want to go forward with the tribute to Paul Jensen? Does that make sense? Should we change the order?
Start my
Yes,
video.
let's change the order, Bonnie.
All right. So Paul, if you'll come on. There we go. You're looking so good. It's my pleasure to pay tribute to Paul Jensen. A brief bio, Paul, if you don't mind. Paul's been the San Rafael Community Development Department Director since 2011, overseeing the city's planning, building, and code enforcement. And he is retiring at the end of this month. And we're all sad about that, except for him. He worked for the city of San Rafael as a planner from 1980 to 88, and then ran a planning consulting firm with a dozen Bay Area client cities, including San Rafael, for 20 years before returning in 2008. Paul holds a BA in Geography and Urban Planning from San Francisco State and holds an American Institute of Certified Planners certification. He also studied city and regional planning at San Jose State University, and he's a native San Franciscan and lived in Marin since 1980. Paul, you are well known by all who come in contact with you for your customer-oriented approach in managing the community development department. What makes you outstanding among your peers is your patience, respectful manner, gracious demeanor, and your unswerving belief in public transparency. Your understanding of the public, private, and nonprofit sides of community planning is matched by few other planners in the Bay Area. Your positive impact on so many aspects of our community cannot be understated. To name a very few, you've been deeply involved in San Rafael's General Plan 2040, which is now coming to completion, just as you were 2 decades ago in GP 2020. You've been contributing to regional and local planning for climate change and sea level rise. You are probably the only city staff person with a good understanding of San Rafael Rock Quarry's issues because of your familiarity with the original EIR. The loss of this institutional memory will be a big loss to the city. You've been involved in the planning process for the relocation of the transit center, which is no easy task. The coalition has interacted with you on many such issues, but our deepest and longest one has been with the village at Loch Lomond Marina. You've been the lead for the city since it was first conceived over 20 years ago. Hard to believe how long it's been. Finally approved by the city council in 2007, there have been many start-stop delays with this project, and it's an ongoing work in progress even today, as we all know. Through it all, Paul has been a steadfast presence, working with all parties, including the coalition's Marina Oversight Committee. With his active support for many years now, the coalition has held regular monthly meetings with all of the involved parties to review plans, discuss issues, resolve community concerns, and encourage progress. Even now, as you enter retirement, you have volunteered to continue your role on behalf of the Community Development Department to manage this development to its conclusion, at no pay, I'm told. Paul, it's truly been Coalition's privilege and honor to work with you these past years, and we feel fortunate to be able to continue that work, even in your retirement on this last project. Paul, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Alan. I have to tell you, I'm so honored by this recognition. It's been a pleasure working for all of you, and I'm going to truly miss working with the coalition. I don't think I've worked with a group, an organization like this that has been so well organized, professional, and respectful. And I really appreciate that as a city staff person. And as a city staff person, I do want to recognize and thank two of you with the coalition. I've worked with many of you, but these two were very important in my work with the city. First, Bonnie Marmer, for her many, many hours of representing the coalition on the San Rafael General Plan 2040. Bonnie brought so much to the table, and there were a lot of edits and changes to that plan based on contributions and good thoughts from Bonnie. The second to you, Alan, I'm glad that I'm going to continue working with you, because I think I'd really miss you stepping away from this role, but you've been a consistent leader in the charge on the Loch Lomond Marina and the Oversight Committee, and I am very happy to continue to participate on that committee post-retirement. So thank you all very much for this recognition.
You're welcome. It was well deserved. Now, hopefully, Kevin, if your audio is working now, we can go to you. Oh, it's still not working.
I think I can pitch in on that. Should I take over, Kevin?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
And
I will get off.
okay. I am happy to step in. Kevin has worked a lot with Andrew, but Andrew, let's see you here. I am so pleased to be able to step up to the plate here and take on the wonderful privilege of honoring Andrew McCullough. Andrew is just an amazing person. I mean, luckily I just had an opportunity to meet with him. He's and kind of refresh my recollection about just how intuitive he is, how thoughtful he is, how pragmatic he is, and just really such an impressive person to work with. No wonder we chose him to be honored today. It's really something that he is well deserved, clearly. So on behalf of the Point San Pedro Road Coalition, it's my pleasure to acknowledge and thank Andrew for his contributions to the city, and more specifically, the neighborhoods of the Point San Pedro Road Peninsula. Andrew, he is one of our Point San Pedro Road neighbors. He is a lawyer, a parent, a swimmer. He recently completed 2 terms on the San Rafael City Council. He is, I believe, a graduate of Yale, a graduate of Hastings Law School, and his intelligence is just so evident as he analyzes problems and works for solutions. It's very impressive to sit down and talk with him and work things out. While he was on the City Council, Andrew assisted the coalition with a number of issues. As a problem solver, he was able to carefully consider conflicting points of view and considerations, and demonstrated this uncanny ability to listen and listen to input from each of the constituents and differing views, and to understand how issues affected our residents. Examples of these things included how he helped resolve issues involving bike lane restrictions on Point San Pedro Road, assessing strategies involving roadway speed limits, all controversial issues, and bringing people together. He was involved in discussing with us and the city's DPW ways for improving pedestrian safety, providing assistance with resolving some financial issues regarding the median assessment district, and so much more. We are very grateful to your service to the city, to our community, and I'm excited to have you continue to engage with us on issues like the golf course being a Red Cross refuge center, that's great. And maybe even storing some of our disaster supplies that we are trying to work out a place on site over there, if that's appropriate. In any event, we look forward to continued conversations with you and continued involvement in our community through you. So thank you so much for your service and for being part of our community.
Well, Bonnie, you're too kind, and thank you for those very fulsome comments. I'm sure Kevin would have said much the same, and I just want to say in response that it's been a real pleasure for me to work with different members of the coalition over the last 9 or 10 years while I was on the council. But even before then, during my involvement with the coalition, I was impressed at the willingness of so many along the San Pedro Peninsula to commit time and energy to make sure that our various communities up and down the road were well served and taken care of. Now that I'm no longer an elected politician, I can say, and I don't expect that Maribeth or Kate can say the same thing, but I can say that of all of the neighborhood communities that serve different parts of San Rafael, the coalition and its constituent members and HOAs are far and away the most vibrant, robust, well-staffed, far-sighted, hardworking of the neighborhood groups. So it's a real testament to all of you who are on this call today for your volunteerism and your efforts on behalf of our community. Finally, I do want to say that the other people being recognized, Gary Phillips, Paul Jensen, those in attendance, Maribeth and Kate, really epitomize the best of San Rafael. Probably the main reason that I agreed to run for city council back in 2011 is because I knew what many people know now and have always known, that San Rafael is arguably the best run city in Marin County, in Marin and Sonoma counties, by virtue of the quality of its staff, that is the senior employees that populate City Hall, and the quality of its elected officials, people who serve with very little expectation of any reward in return, but give freely of their time and energy and avoid the bickering and partisanship that sometimes will infect the leadership in other communities. So it was a real pleasure for me to serve and work alongside such fine people. So Kevin and Bonnie and Alan and well, the rest, I'm looking at my screen here. Thanks again for your service and for this acknowledgement today.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for those kind comments about our board and our committee members, and thanks to Mayor Phillips and to Paul Jensen for what feels like very genuine and heartfelt comments. It really feels great to hear that recognition, and most importantly, we're here to honor you, and we are glad that we were able to give you this tribute, each of you, and glad to have had you as part of our community these past years. And again, we want to thank you and express our gratitude. I remember about 15 years ago, I can't remember how long ago, but I do recall a meeting at the St. Luke Church where we were having an annual meeting. And at that time, there was no representative of our area on the city council. And I commented about that, like, we don't have a voice on our city council from our area. And then Andrew stepped up and ran, and then we did. And then Maribeth stepped up and ran, and we had two. And now we have district elections, and now we have a new mayor, and it's a whole new phase. And so I'm really glad that we have both the mayor and vice mayor here today, and it's my pleasure to introduce both of them. So they're going to I think, share the screen for their comments. So I'm going to just give a brief introduction for each of them before they get started. And so with regard to Mayor Kate Collin, or Mayor Kate, as she is known. She was the first female to hold office of the mayor since the city was incorporated in 1847. Woo! And that's a big deal. That is just great. She joined the city council in January 2013, and she was a planning commissioner for nearly 8 years. What great background for being our mayor. She's been a resident of the Sun Valley neighborhood since 1996. She raised her family there. She lives with her husband, Jeff, and they have been here for a very long time, enjoying the diversity of people here, the neighborhoods, the open spaces. And she's a real outdoorsy kind of person to really enjoy that. She believes with working with community. We've seen that in action already, and we're really pleased that she's here today. Kate's background includes having an MBA, and she is just a great person to be heading up our city as we move forward. We're also excited to have Maribeth Bushey here today. She too is a mom and a long-term member of our community right here in the Point San Pedro Road area. As I had mentioned, so glad to have her as part of the city council. She was an active member of her homeowners association board before she became a member of the planning commission here in San Rafael for a long time. She served there 14 years. She was involved in school issues and all kinds of issues, always very active. She's a lawyer, and she is just one of those people that takes on a lot. She's a hiker. And hey, she even came to our weed pull. Thank you, Maribeth. We were glad to see you to come out and help us pull those weeds in advance of this Red Flag Day. Aren't we glad we got it done when we did? We made such a difference. We cleared a wide swath from really highly flammable French broom, which is just a great accomplishment. So thank you for joining us for the weed pull. Thank you for joining us today. And without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our guest speakers.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I will share my screen shortly, but I just wanted to put out some appreciation for everything that your committee's been doing, that Bonnie has done, Alan Shevitz behind the scenes, Denise with that lovely introduction, Kevin who tried to give his, honoring Andrew and Gary and Paul. I mean, they are the epitome of the best of public service. So it's great to be following on their heels. They set a great stage, and appreciate having this opportunity to check with all of you. Check in, find out what's going on. I know we spoke last year in November. I was thinking about that meeting. That was right after the election. So I think of that November 6th or 7th to now. Wow, it has been a whirlwind, and Vice Mayor Bushey and I are delighted to be here to talk through several of the broader issues. So we'll touch on some citywide things, and then we also have some neighborhood specific. We hope to get to all your questions. If we don't have time, or if we don't have the answers, we promise that we'll follow up with your leadership after. So this is a great opportunity to connect. I'm gonna share my screen. I found that it's just easier. Pictures worth 1,000 words so often. So let me do the slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. Okay. So, okay. My internet was so slow this week. So for a second there, I wasn't sure it was going to show up. So look at all these things we're going to talk about. It's a lot of information. So again, if you end up asking a question on something we already covered, not a big deal. We understand there's a lot here. And when I look at each of them, we could actually spend a half an hour on each of these alone. We won't. Maribeth and I, Vice Mayor Bushey and I are going to hand off at different slides. So it will be an organic process. So we start all of the meetings talking about COVID. I mean, how could we not, right? It has impacted every level of our life, both personal and professional. And we see that light at the end of the tunnel. And there's two aspects to the slide. The one on the left is really about our case rates. We have been in a tiered system through the state of California for the last year. And that tiered system is going away mid-June. We've been talking to Dr. Willis and his team. What does that mean for our community? Because when the tiered system goes away, all of the shelter, all the orders literally disappear, and the different tiered of how much gyms can be open or restaurants goes away. So we'll be sure to keep your leadership updated as to what that means. But what it really means is the opening up of our community. Obviously, we all have different ways of assessing the risk, what feels right for us. So maybe you'll go out to eat, maybe you won't. I have to say, last night was Dine Under the Lights in San Rafael. I went to this new Mexican restaurant that's down in the West End, and they had no available tables outside. My husband and I ate inside, I have to say. And I thought, I'm not going to eat inside until, and it felt fine. We're both vaccinated, and most of the workers, I can't speak for all of them, but have had the opportunity to be vaccinated, which is the second part of the slide on the right-hand side. This is super impressive. And I realized I didn't pull it off. I usually update it right before it. I didn't get to it this morning, but look at those figures. Over 83%, now I think it's climbing up, of people that are eligible to be vaccinated have at least one dose. That's amazing. We are the most vaccinated county in the state of California. So because of that, our case rates are going down. So this is really good news. Again, we're all going to make personal choices as to what feels safe, but we're headed in the right direction. And I look forward to seeing all of you out at Dine Under the Lights, whether you get a table inside or outside. But we do have those opportunities to gather. So as I mentioned, we had all met back in November. And at that time, we had not had all of the council wasn't sat yet. If you look at this, District 4, Rachel Kurtz, so the election had happened, but it hadn't been finalized because the results were close until after we had met. So she is the new representative of District 4. And then, yay, Maribeth. So Maribeth and I have worked together. Gosh, she always says, don't say it because the dates are still over a decade. And I'm delighted that the two of us can continue to provide that institutional knowledge. As you saw, having Gary and Andrew and John leave, you know, it's kind of like, wait, we're breaking up the band, but we have new band members who are super excited and engaged. The council appointed Eli Hill for District 2. He has been on the Fire Commission and he was on the Planning Commission, so really has that same public service gene and is already showing up and organizing community meetings. And finally, Micah Urenz Gulati, she's bilingual, bicultural Hispanic, and she is representing District 1. And she is also going out and really meeting with the neighbors, sharing kind of these broad topics as well as neighborhood specific. So we have a great team. I'm sure Maribeth would agree that the three of them are working overtime to get caught up to speed. And we are really grateful to have a new band that is will be as great as the old one in a different way. So we're looking forward to that. Okay, so as I said, we're going to fly through these because we want to make sure we spend time on the issues that are neighborhood specific. So we realize when we look at what the city does, we provide services, right? We do infrastructure, we do stoplights, we have police, we have fire. Those are crucial to a well-functioning city. In addition, we have found that our community wants more. We all want more. We want to move the needle on economic recovery, racial justice, homelessness and housing, and climate change. So we're looking at these policy buckets is a word that we're using. These are very broad topics. So when we're taking on projects or initiatives, how do they move the needle on these? How are they addressing homelessness or housing and we'll speak to these. I'm actually looking at my notes. Yes, I do have more specific on this. So this is a brand new approach, and at our council meeting, I don't think it's the next one, it might be the one after. Shout out to subscribe to the city manager snapshot if you don't already, because that always previews what's coming up on the agenda. But it will be coming up in the next month or so, both our goals and objectives, very kind of specific, as well as these policy buckets. But these are the issues where when we meet again, I don't know, November or next year when you have another meeting, we want to say this is where we made progress on these key issues. We are going to touch on, actually, I'm going to talk briefly about economic recovery, and then I'll talk a little bit more about homelessness and housing, and then Vice Mayor will talk about the climate change slides we have coming up. So as we all know, COVID has hit our economy hugely, not as bad as we had forecasted back when we did an economic recovery plan that we adopted back in April of 2020. Being that people switched, they still purchased, but they actually purchased different items, more groceries, right? They're still shopping local, but they're having it delivered to their house, or they're just not traveling as much, but that money was still being spent locally. In addition, though, we wanted to find out from our business owners, tell us what's been going on. Tell us about your ability to get loans. Tell us about your ability to open up. So over the month of February, March, and April, I did what I'm calling a walkabout literally walked into businesses throughout San Rafael, North San Rafael, downtown, East San Rafael, and just walked around and introduced myself. I often had on the picture on the right, that's with Councilmember Micah. There's this amazing deli that's over on Anderson. Is that right? I think it's on Anderson. It was, yeah, highly recommend it. We grab lunch there. But that was really important. So for two reasons. One is that people could meet me and whatever council member was with me, and they could say, hey, they could hear me say, the city say, you're really important to us. We recognize our small businesses, our local business, they provide the economic engine that we're going to need for recovery, both from just a sales tax dollars, but also to have our community reknit, right? It's hard to have a community that's connected when we're all inside our house. So the walkabouts were great. I visited over 300 businesses and got a lot of good information. And looking ahead, we will be creating an economic strategic plan to determine what do we want to do deliberately, strategically to continue to build our economic engine. So enough on that. Racial justice, big issue that has been an issue for the city. We've been talking about it for even before all the events of last year. And now trying to be more deliberate. How do we make sure that the policies that we have are inclusive and recognize that maybe not all the voices are in the room? How do we ensure that those voices are heard? Working with community directly, working with our community-based organizations. We are really looking forward to looking at any sort of systemic racism that's in the policies we have, the ones we hopefully don't approve, but we have those conversations. So more to come on all of that. Okay, the next two, I have homelessness and housing. Seriously, I could talk an hour about that. But what I'm gonna do instead is speak very specifically about the encampments. So if you've been out driving around, you have noticed that underneath the viaducts in San Rafael, so along the 101, underneath the 101 corridor, there have been encampments that have emerged, and they emerged the end of last year. And since last year, when I say it out loud, it sounds discouraging, but we've been engaged about the issue with Senator McGuire because we don't have jurisdiction underneath the viaducts. So just want that to sink in. It's Caltrans, which means that we, the city, cannot unilaterally take action there. And it's the same wherever Caltrans property is, in Berkeley, LA, wherever. And so anything we do has to be done in partnership. Caltrans, when COVID hit, started to follow the CDC guidelines that said that this came down from the CDC was encampments cannot be removed. They cannot be removed because we were all worried about the spread of COVID from the housed to the unhoused population, which, by the way, that spread did not happen, but at the time, folks didn't know. So Caltrans was not willing to come to the table to talk about addressing the encampments. That's challenge number one. Challenge number two is last July, so of 2020, the Supreme Court, not the California Supreme Court, the Supreme Court upheld a case titled Martin versus Boise. Write it down, you can Google it and learn all about it online. What I will say is it removed a tool that the city utilized to engage with folks who are unhoused. The ruling said that unless you have housing to offer people right then and there, that they cannot be moved along from public spaces. So obviously Caltrans, that's a public space. It also applies to our parks, our libraries, community centers. So it's a big deal. So that's another issue that has come up and really impacted our ability or impacted the tools that we had used before. So back to the encampments, we have Caltrans, Senator McGuire's brought them to the table, and then working with Marin County Health and Human Services. They also wanted to follow the CDC guidelines of not removing encampments. So what's happened was the encampments started to grow. So fast forward now to May, I can't believe it. And the city's continues, as we have from when they first started to emerge, concerned about people congregating in encampments and having them get larger. Let me be clear, I don't want any encampments anywhere. People should be housed. It is shocking to me that we live in a affluent community and there are people sleeping underneath our freeway. Like that is an anathema to me as a human being. And I recognize that the folks that are there have a lot of issues going on. Might be mental health, might be addiction, and they need support. And they have an impact on the surrounding community, both the residents and the businesses. So I see both, and I feel compassion and frustration at the same time. So we are using, what are the tools that we're using? One is you have a really determined mayor. I met with the county, I meet with them actually probably 1 or 2 times a week, specifically on this issue. We have a group that is meeting regularly. I text Senator McGuire to make sure that he continues to bring Caltrans to the table. And we have our secret weapon. We have Lynn Murphy. She is amazing. She is, let me see, third. Well, if you don't count the person behind the door on the left, she is third from the left. She has a black top and the beige pants. She's embedded with the San Rafael PD. She is a licensed psychologist, and she is the head of our outreach team. We are the only city in Marin County who has someone like Lynn Murphy, and she's phenomenal. What we realized years ago was that we had this incredible, we really do have a great social service safety net here. But what was happening was there was a little bit of a gap between the services and connecting with the people on the street. Lynn goes around, and her job is she meets and talks to the folks that are unhoused and helps to make those connections, helps to get them connected to services. And she has been out to the encampments. She's out there, and I have my notes somewhere, but between she and Downtown Streets team, which you're all familiar with. Those are folks that they get job training, and they get access to housing, and they physically clean the streets of San Rafael. So that's another, they have outreach workers, and the county has a new mobile crisis outreach team. So we have people checking in with the folks in the encampments 3 times a week, in addition to DPW coming in and removing debris. So Lynn is out there working really hard to build relationships. She told me last week that there was someone in the encampment who, and I can't even get my mind around this, has been homeless for 40 years on the streets of San Rafael. Like, okay, obviously the system, even the better system, wasn't working for him. And she was able to get him into Project Room Key. And I'll tell you in a moment what Project Room Key is. But what a success, and what she's hoping is by getting folks that have had a hard time getting off the street, that others will see who are on the street, wow, they were able to house or get shelter for John Doe. Maybe they can do that for me too. She's especially proud of the fact that 2 weeks ago, they had a mobile vaccination clinic that went out and vaccinated many the homeless folks, both in the encampments and surrounding San Rafael. I think it was over 40 people. And that's what this photo is from. And the reason we highlight that is apparently in some of the other encampments, not that I'm going to talk trash about other cities, but they didn't have the same experience, and that because the folks that were unhoused didn't have the relationships with a person like Lynn, in those other encampments, they refused to be vaccinated. So that didn't happen in San Rafael. The folks you see on the street have been vaccinated. So that is hats off to Lynn. Just very quickly, Project Room Key and Project Home Key, there are a lot of dollars coming down from the state as well as the feds, recognizing that homelessness is a massive issue even before COVID. It's being exacerbated by COVID as people that were right on the edge, some are slipping into homelessness. We are seeing that a little bit in San Rafael. We'll probably see more of it when the eviction moratoriums end in the next, well, maybe they'll be extended, but in the next year. Project Room Key, just what it sounded like, it provided a room at a local hotel plus supportive services. That's a key part. You can't just put someone in a room, you need to actually support them with services. The folks that are there have a lot of issues and they need that support. Project Home Key is a permanent housing unit. I'm really proud of the fact that the city of San Rafael has a Project Home Key site. In addition, we had from our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we had $1 million. You have to do a match. And in that, and I just realized the number's not going to come to me, there's around 50 units of folks that could go from the street into this permanent supportive housing. That's huge. And it has worked, this housing first approach, getting people housed, offering services. We have housed, collective we, Marin County, we, over 300 of the hardest to serve. So we can't see success because people are in their homes, are in this housing unit. So it's hard to see success, but it's easy to see encampments. So just want to put that out there. And last, there's this great, and I will drop this in, I'll try to drop into the chat or send it to Bonnie later, but the city is working really hard to put information that Vice Mayor and I are going to give you today onto the website, because we really want to offer that and have that as a resource. You can always email us, but often, truth here, I'll go to the website, find the link, and then I'll email you the link, because that's where we're trying to put the information. So, so there's a lot of great information on this website. So happy to answer more questions, but do want to keep moving on because there's a lot of issues that I know are important. So I am going to stop talking and hand the virtual dais over to the Vice Mayor to talk. We have a couple slides on sea level rise and wildfire.
Okay, thanks so much. And Mayor Kate, I would be remiss to not express our thank yous on really on behalf of the whole community. I have had a front row seat to your work on the homelessness issues confronting San Rafael for many years now. And I know firsthand the level of patience that has to be exhibited and continued commitment to pursuing these issues. So thank you for your years of work and all of the benefits that it has brought to San Rafael and Marin County as a whole. Shifting gears then, stormwater infrastructure. We often forget that much of San Rafael is behind dikes, and we need to pump our water over the dikes out into the bay. Out here on the Point San Pedro Road, we've of course had many issues through the years of flooding at particular intersections. I remember my particular intersection down here, Riviera Drive, has flooded at least 3 times in the time I've been here. And we've spent a great deal of city funds and planning in getting the pump itself elevated and getting the generator that it runs on when we lose power out there. So it's one of those things that you don't see until the roads are flooded. But as I don't know how many of you were watching our last city council meeting, but we addressed our capital improvement plan, and the biggest item in there was a pump station. They are very expensive to run and to maintain, and we have a lot of them. So this is a big part of what we do, and as sea level rises, it becomes even more important. So you're going back, there you go, click forward.
I am sorry, I am having a, sorry. Just sorry,
No
you think after a year I would know how to do a slide show, but obviously I'm still learning. Okay, sorry about that, Maribeth.
There we go, no problem. There we go. And this is what we've been doing a lot, also thinking about sea level rise and what it means to San Rafael. We've studied, and I understand from Bonnie that you've also had the presentation from Jeff Rhodes and his group. Lots of great details there, lots of proposals. Most of them are massive capital projects that we will require a great deal of funding, but we are actively looking at all of them and looking for feasible things that we can do to protect San Rafael in the foreseeable future. And then we go there. Yep, there we are, looking for funding and doing our best to be open to whatever type of funding we can find and get those projects underway as soon as possible. Wildfire prevention. Okay, first I've got to start off with the detail. If you look at that picture of the very glamorous me, no, that's not the goats, the one above it. If you look in the back of that dumpster, you see a man in a navy blue shirt. That is former Chief Gray, who's a resident of the Point San Pedro Road area. He was at the weed pull and was supervising the loading of the dumpster, which is entirely appropriate that he would be involved in the hands-on doing. He was, to a large extent, the driving force, I think, and leadership role in the beginning of our response to the wildfire issues, which started 3 years ago, at least, maybe more than that, when our fire department came to us and said, we have a 38-point plan of what we want to do. And that initiated a multi-year process of working with the community, coming up with the different ideas and standards that we were going to adopt in the different areas of San Rafael, I participated in many meetings debating exactly what type of landscaping plants should not be allowed any further, and what we were going to do about cedar shake roofs. All big issues that were hammered out with great deal of input from the community so that we could all work together on standards going forward that would protect our community. And then we were able to, hopefully, I think I can say that we inspired the county to bring forward the countywide plan and tax to fund the countywide effort on the bigger projects. Because some of the things, not even Chief Gray and I can pull enough room to make a difference in the county. We need to work together on the bigger projects. And now we have our wildfire prevention organization, Joint Powers Authority in Marin County. Councilmember Kurtz is our representative on that and is working to fully integrate all of San Rafael's priorities in that program. We also have a number of specific programs in our neighborhoods, Firewise neighborhood, CERT training. All of these are run by the much beloved Quinn Gardner, who is just an incredible asset to our city in bringing wildfire prevention to people in an accessible way that they can take measures on their own property and work together collaboratively on property in the community. So there we go. And there's our plan. As Mayor Kate mentioned, all of these details are available on our website, and I really encourage you to go there. Look for the different aspects of the program that might be interesting to you, so that you can do what works in your property.
And I will add that this is a screenshot. So the residential fire hazard assessment request. So that is a tool that you can go to contact the fire department. And I'm going to underscore how awesome Quinn is, __. She's amazing. There is an event this Thursday. Again, we can give Bonnie the details that she'll be doing a Zoom outreach on both prevention, hardening of your homes. So there is opportunity to engage with her directly and hear what she has to say. So I'm happy to share that. Okay, there we go. I think this back to you, Vice Mayor.
All right, turning for a minute back to our specific neighborhood issues. I want to start with the quarry because it's become, I have sort of a different perspective on it now. For many years, I worked in San Francisco and didn't spend my business days here in Peacock Gap. With COVID, I'm here all the time, and I have now regularly experience the dynamiting at the quarry, and feel the place shake. So it's a different perspective on it, but I can also say that over the years that I've lived here, our community's perspective on the quarry has really changed. There was a time many years ago when it was very contentious, and we were very much at odds with them. I think that has changed over the years. I took a lawsuit to do it, but things have changed over the years. It's become much more cooperative, and I know that people in the community really enjoy the once-a-year visits to the quarry. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to those soon. But to go and see what a massive project it is, and all that they have there. Their cooperation has been coming through also in our disaster planning. They're a big part of some of our disaster possibilities, things that we might be able to do because of the equipment and just the sheer size of the operation there. We had some questions about what the city's position was going to be on any application that they might make for being open another 20 years. We haven't seen that application, so we don't have a specific position on it. We will, of course, when it should come to us, we'll review it and provide comments as we have done on all the other comments on all the other actions that they've taken in the past. And to close, I'd like to end on an up. With the quarry, as some of you might not know, I am also on our new library committee. And we are working on a concept plan for a joint community center library at the B Street site. And so we were working with the architects, and we just had a meeting last week with them. And one of the suggestions was that we would use local stone in the facade on the building. And we mentioned that we've got a quarry and that type of rock. So I think that represents a different way of thinking about the quarry, bringing it into our community and integrating it in a safe and in a safe and positive way. Let's see. Speaking of ups, and then I'm going up the list. The marina update. One question we had was about the playground at the marina. I'm delighted to say that playground is open. It is not a city playground. It's run by the owners of the marina. So it's up to them whether it's open or not. We of course will provide them any information that they need about what is safe and consistent with the county health ordinances. But I'm very happy that it's open. So that issue has been resolved. Moving on to the median strips. I'm going to tell you just a little bit of history here. At least prior to the median strips getting started on Point San Pedro Road, the median strips in Peacock Gap were redone. We had a vote here and voted to tax ourselves and update our medians in Peacock Gap. That proceeded by about 2 or 3 years. The median strip project for the Point San Pedro Road, which I believe was the genesis of the Point San Pedro Road Coalition when that Melrose district started. So as we like to say out here, we started a median project in Peacock Gap, and it rolled all the way up on the road to San Rafael. The median strips, and particularly maintenance thereof, has been a long-running issue. Several years ago, we switched our maintenance provider from someone to the current Gardeners Guild who is doing it. They are, I think, an improvement, but we are always looking for input. Let us know if there's a sprinkler head broken, or if maintenance is not up to the right standards. Get that feedback to DPW. They manage the contract with Gardeners Guild. So that we can be in a position to provide them feedback and ask them for specific things that we need. So that takes care of there's a quarry. And the marina, we've covered those. Okay.
So we're tag teaming here. So we did want to briefly talk about resident engagement. And I have to say, even though Andrew said Maribeth and I wouldn't say it, we do recognize that your neighborhood, your coalition, and all of the homeowners and neighborhood associations is one of the most engaged. And we've really enjoyed, I know I've enjoyed working with you over the years, and obviously so had Gary and Andrew and Paul. And we just threw this up there because what we found in talking to communities, one of the questions we often get or follow up, what can I do to help? How can I engage? And there's not just one way to engage, right? There are a lot of different ways to engage with the city. And so when you look at this beehive, figuring out what is a way that resonates with you. And we bring this up because we found that your new council, that there now is a time to really look at how do we best engage with our residents? How do we best engage with our neighborhoods? And we want it to evolve. So the way that we might have been doing it 10, 15 years ago, we don't want to make an assumption that's the right way going forward. We all recognize now we can Zoom together. I think I just looked, there were over 50 people. We were all together and none of you had to take your slippers off or get in your car. Like, that's amazing, right? And you're here getting an update. So, so this is kind of a mosaic of what's available out there. So as we look forward, we wanted to find out, well, how do residents want to be engaged with? You're getting a little bit of a sneak preview here, just so you know. We did a survey, And there was a lot more questions than this one, but I like to share this one because it resonates. I don't know, resonate with your leadership as well. We wanted to find out, what do people want? We didn't, again, want to assume the way we've been doing it. And so the one in the top, in the middle, if you're not a member of your association, so this is really just for people that are on committees, we thought that was kind of interesting. Wow, 28% don't know how to join. Okay. And there's the, who knows the other, but hey, you look at that, you get 30% more people that could be joining your association if they could figure out how. So I think that is super interesting. I'm gonna move these down so we can see each other. Preferred way to meet. Boy, this is a question we wouldn't have asked a year and a half ago. Fascinating though. So in person or no preference or virtually. So it's pretty much that peace sign, just kind of interesting the way it netted out. What we found though on a deeper dive, folks that come in person, specifically to a council meeting, is engaged in a different way than someone who wants to Zoom in. And we all understand that intuitively. Much easier to, right now, if you want to give input in a council meeting, you can literally write your comments in a chat. You don't even have to read them. City Clerk Lara reads them for you. So folks that might not feel comfortable getting in the car, well, when it happens that we do this again, coming to the podium, standing up and talking to the council, actually feels really comfortable putting in comments. So we want to retain that, right? We want to keep getting, really lower the barriers to get input. Going forward, and we're planning this, figuring this out, we, the city clerk and the amazing digital team, how we're going to have a hybrid going forward. So rest assured that in the future, when we are gathering back in person, it's not going to look the way it did pre-COVID. You will always have a way to interact virtually, and they're figuring that out. But I think that's a great way to expand the conversation. And then this last one was, how often do you want to meet with City Hall? We don't know, again, how much of this face-to-face, and this was really interesting. So 1 to 2 times a year, which, Bonnie will say that's kind of what your group has been doing. And of course, as needed. Obviously, local government is the power of local government is always the fact that we're local. So we're going to pivot and share a little bit more about us, because one thing we realized in this conversations is sometimes we find that people like City Hall, and I love this edifice because it's so imposing and so not welcoming, and that's so not what San Rafael is. You could have hung out with Vice Mayor Bushey pulling broom 2 weeks ago, right? That's what government looks like. That's what local government looks like. And I always gently and respectfully tease Congressman Huffman, because it's really the foundational relationship of local government that state and federal governments build off of, right? Because you don't have the same relationship, or you might if you're lucky, but for the most part with state or federal officials. But you can build relationships with us. You can see me at United Market picking out tangerines and saying, hey, Kate, about that. And that happens all the time, by the way. Well, it's harder now because I have a mask, so people don't recognize me, but we love that. And that's why Maribeth and I and Micah and Eli and Rachel all serve. We want to engage. We want to hear what's on your mind. So we realized that, oh, I see Bonnie. Well, we're getting, hey, no, I can't hear you because you're muted. So we're just going to keep going because we're getting to the really, I see it's 10:50, but we're getting to the super juicy slides.
Okay, we're behind schedule because we still have a bunch of committee reports. So okay, I just wanted to let you know.
Well, okay, you know what? We'll just do the get to know and then we'll stop. I won't finish all the different stuff. So
okay, thank you.
Really fun. I think this is the fun part. Okay, so there is a picture. I'm gonna close this. So it's like, who are we? So very quickly, and Bonnie mentioned this, I love the outdoors. I'm a cyclist, here I am down here. I rode China Camp last week. I'm a trail runner. My parents, my mom just turned 88. My dad's up in the corner. He passed away a couple of years ago, miss him terribly, but he really taught me to be respectful and kind and curious. So regardless of the tone of any email I get or phone call, I'm always going to respond with kindness and respect because I was raised that way. I have 3 sisters, 2 kids, and I've been married to my husband for almost 30 years. So that's the quick, dirty, down and dirty. And the last in the corner, I'm descended from Amelia Earhart. So we can unpack that later. But we felt this was important because this is what we bring. This is what Maribeth and I bring. We bring our families, we bring our personal relationships that we have in San Rafael to all of you. So that's my slide. I will quickly go. Maribeth will talk to hers.
And I'll go very quickly. I am the proud mother of Claire and Tristan. Who you see them there at Glenwood Elementary School. They went to Davidson and graduated from San Rafael High. They're both. That's them also in the picture to the right. That's Tristan graduating from college. They're both now mechanical engineers. Shout out to the Physics Academy at San Rafael High. Excellent program there. Claire's literally a rocket scientist. She works for SpaceX up in Seattle, and Tristan's a natural gas pipeline engineer. That's me in my Coinbase T-shirt. I'm sailing to the Galapagos with my sister and her family. The berries on the right are Marion berries. I grow them in my garden. I'm very proud of them. They're I think the best berry. And then I have my lilacs and my California poppies also out in the garden. And finally, my COVID new hobby is baking sourdough bread. I have a limitless supply of sourdough starter. If you need some good local sourdough starter, I'm happy to provide you with however much you could possibly need. So thank you.
I want some of that. Okay, so we'll just zip along. Last quickly thing, I just want to say sign up for Snapshot. Just go to the city website. It'll keep you informed that you only get an email twice a month. So, and then of course, Bonnie can pass along how you can participate in the general plan 2040. And San Rafael has recently joined the Gun Safety Collaborative because we recognize that gun violence is an epidemic in our community. So not in our community, in the world. So I'm going to stop the share. Bonnie, thank you
so much for packing in so much into this short time. We appreciate you doing that, both of you. It was great to have all that information in such a short amount of time.
Next time, just ask us about one thing and we could get through it, no problem.
Yeah, well, I sent a lot of questions to you. We have a lot of questions in the Q&A, and so I was hoping we'd have time to get to those questions, but we still have reports coming up from Winifred and the rest of our committee chairs. I really want to give them a chance to tell everybody about what we've been up to and what our plans are. So Winifred, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. And that was a very wonderful, very inspiring speech by our new mayor and vice mayor. I'm very excited about the new phase that's been ushered in. At the same time, I'm sad to see our former officials go. Anyways, I am the chair of the Wetlands Committee. Good morning, everybody. And our mission on the Wetlands Committee, and I think I've said this before, is we focus on our local wetlands and protecting, advocating for them, educating about them. Areas that we're very interested in are habitat enhancement, improvement in the wetlands condition, sea level rise and all that entails. That's a very important issue lately. And as I said, education. And we are not out to replicate work done by larger organizations. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to supplement the very good work that Audubon and organizations like the Marin Conservation Society are already doing. And in addition to this, it's our goal to try to organize events yearly, several yearly events as appropriate to engage the community. So this year, our first event was on Earth Day. We had a webinar called Wetlands 101 with Dr. Stuart Siegel, who's a coastal resilience expert, and Barbara Saltzman, who has been the president of the Marin Audubon Society for decades and has been a tireless advocate for our local wetlands. And they did an excellent job of explaining, first of all, what our wetlands are and why they are so important in so many ways. And Dr. Siegel gave a very good overview of this. And then Barbara went in and took viewers on a virtual tour of our local wetlands and gave an assessment of the condition of each one. If you weren't able to attend this webinar in person, good news is that they have been recorded and are available on the Point San Pedro website for viewing, along with 3 other excellent webinars we did last year, 2 by Rick Cimino. One on the Vox's swifts, the wonderful migration that happens yearly, where the Volks's Swifts come in and land at the McNear Brickyard. And also he did a presentation on our local bird life. And then Jeff Rhodes of Resilient Shore did a webinar on sea level rise. And we're also very much interested in and following the Quarry Marsh restoration plan. We've been engaged with that and seeing what the plan involves, seeing if it could be maybe improved on, understanding it better. That's a work in progress that's going on. And we don't really have any conclusive evidence or any conclusive information right now because, as I said, you know, a lot of communication is still going on and the upcoming extension of maybe the quarry's operations. So we welcome and encourage anyone who cares about the wetlands and it matters to be on our committee. And we meet the third Tuesday of every month at 5. So if you'd like to join or you want more information, you can just connect with us by going to the Point San Pedro website and you click on the Wetlands tab. There's a contact button. We'd love to hear from you. And now I am going to hand the floor over to David Crutcher of the Quarry Committee.
Thank you, Winifred. I am the chair of the Quarry Committee, though Bonnie does most of the work, as I think I've mentioned before. And also, as was mentioned earlier, we continued to meet regularly with Supervisor Connolly over the past half year. Although we discussed an array of query issues with Supervisor Connolly and his staff, given the time constraints, I'm going to mention just 3 here. First, our most significant current query issue remains the quarry's request for a 20-year extension of its operating permit. The current permit and reclamation plan generally contemplate that the quarry will be ceasing operations by the end of 2024, which of course is not going to happen. So they will need to update their rec plan to cover this additional mining period. A reclamation plan is the plan for how the physical site will be cleaned up and put to use after mining ceases. And it requires the quarry to perform some of those tasks before the mine shuts down, whenever that'll be. Because the quarry has a right to continue mining, as they do, they've made a request to the county to update its permit and the rec plan to continue mining several more decades. A consultant has been hired to prepare a supplemental environmental review to determine whether the quarry's proposal to mine another 20 years causes new or more substantial environmental impacts than those that were identified in the environmental impact report that was prepared back in 2009. That report was expected to be out by now, but we were recently informed that it's been pushed back to June, so we should get that in the next month or 6 weeks or so. When the report comes out, we'll be reviewing it closely and we will keep you informed on our website on its conclusions. Second, we recently received a copy of the quarry's annual 2020 report, which was made, well, I guess it's just one 2020 report, it's annually produced though, which was made available just a few weeks ago. One interesting statistic was the amount of the material mined and sent out during 2020. The quarry is allowed to produce about 1.5 million tons of material per year. The actual number is subject to a formula that sort of smooths out the ups and downs, but the 1.5 million tons is roughly accurate. During 2020, the quarry extracted about 330,000 tons of material, which is about 23% of capacity or so. That percentage is pretty consistent with extraction rates over the last decade, but it's way down from the full capacity levels that were mined in previous decades. We understand that the quarry is able to barge out more material for levee and other water access projects. And when they do that, that extraction rate, or until they get more water related projects like levee work, that extraction rate may not change all that much. Less than 10% of the material that was sent out last year was barged. The rest, of course, was sent out on Point San Pedro Road via the trucks that we all see. If the quarry significantly increases its production, as it's expected to do over the next extra 20 years that they want to mine, our understanding is that the great bulk of that is going to be barged out and it's not going to be sent out on the road, since we're told they're fairly close to their maximum amounts that can be sent out on the road currently. Finally, part of the query's reclamation includes various activities in the northeast quadrant, which runs up against the back of the Marin Bay Park neighborhood. They're allowed to perform reclamation in that quadrant only for 8 to 10 weeks in the summer and fall. It can be very noisy and dusty when they're doing that because there's a lot of earth moving that they're engaged in. We were informed last week by the query that this year's reclamation in this quadrant will begin on July 5, and it'll last 8 to 10 weeks. So residents close to the northeast quadrant can expect some extra activity in July and August. And that's all I have time for. So I believe I'll turn it over to Kevin Haggerty, who will have some comments relating to the Point San Pedro roadway. Well, Kevin,
Well, Kevin, we still can't hear you. So I'm gonna, again, since you kindly sent me your comments in writing, should I just read those? Okay, I will step in here and try to read some of those comments. So Kevin has let me know that he wanted to focus on a couple of issues. An upcoming webinar on Point San Pedro Road traffic and safety issues. There have been a number of questions in the Q&A. We unfortunately running out of time here, but I want everyone to know that the Roadway Committee has been working with the city and county traffic engineering staffs on reviewing traffic safety issues, traffic and safety issues along the roadway, all the way from Union Street to Biscayne Drive. These issues involve all kinds of subjects such as the pedestrian crossings, the bicycle lanes, the traffic speed limits, all of which people have questions about. And we will explore in a webinar with all the folks. We're going to bring them to the table so we can go through all of those things in detail so we can all gain a better understanding of why things are the way they are and whether and how they might be improved. So we know that all the area residents share these concerns that we have, and so we are working on scheduling this hopefully in June. At that meeting, the city and county staff will present information on the actions that have been taken or are planned to improve traffic and safety along the roadway. So more importantly, that is the time when those attending the webinar will have an opportunity to share their concerns and ask questions and have them answered. So we'll have a dedicated webinar so we won't be rushed and we can really take a deep dive into those topics. As far as the maintenance of the medians, our committee has been working hard on, making sure that work gets done. There was an assessment district that was created in 2012. That was a committee that we started many years after we started the coalition, but it was one of our projects. It's been successful in getting those medians improved, but the maintenance of them has been problematic. We know that in the last several months, there have been a lot of complaints from residents regarding the maintenance of the medians. The Roadway Committee and the Subcommittee Median Committee share those concerns, and they've been working with the city to address the issue. And they're hoping to get the issues resolved soon. And then they're also working with the city on a plan to address any water restrictions as a result of the drought. The committee will be updating on all of those issues in the coming weeks. So sorry that Kevin, who is the expert in all these things, couldn't give this report, but I hope I gave the highlights of it. So next, I would like to turn it over to Ellen to tell us about Loch Lomond Marina.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'll try to keep it short. We're getting to the end of our time here available. I am the chair of the Marina Oversight Committee, as has been mentioned before, working closely with Paul Jensen in that regard as Community Development Director. We formed decades ago now, it would appear, somewhere around the Ice Age, as this project began to get underway in the early 2000s and been involved ever since. You all are probably aware it's the largest development project in our area and has been for some time. We've been trying to continue moving it forward. It's had many starts and stops with the previous developers. Over time, it's sold to various people and is now in kind of a final stage. As you might have seen by the posts that we put on the website, the remaining residential sites were sold by Marina Village Associates to Truemark Homes, a very well-known and large residential home developer who has pledged to move forward on this project rapidly. In fact, we expect work to begin any moment now. They actually are working hard to get the permits and get ready to move the excess dirt that's in the old home site, the home site locations, and level that area and begin that construction. They've made a goal to basically be out of there, have all the buildings done, construction done and sold by the end of next year. We continue to work with them. We meet as a group once a month and have been for many years now under the auspices of Paul Jensen and the CDD, the Community Development Department. We meet with all of the parties involved and go over status, issues, problems, concerns, et cetera, and try to work them through and make things move forward. You can see the result of those meetings on our website. I post the results of that meeting, a summary of that meeting every month on the coalition website. Also in that section on the marina are the list of all the participants, the various owners of various properties within the website, various entities that are involved, status of the construction, et cetera. So go to sprcoalition.org and go to the Marina Committee website section. You also, I'll put a point in that if you go to the other contacts, I think it's called, relook at that, it's called resources tab on the website. The first entry is the coalition's YouTube channel, where the various videos that were mentioned by others in this presentation can be found, and the video of this meeting will be there shortly as soon as I can get it downloaded and fixed and whatever and put up on YouTube. So it'll be there as well. If you have any questions or any problems, please use the contact pages to give us your issues or concerns. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any with regard to that. So you can contact me at webmaster@sprcoalition.org. With that, I'll turn the meeting back over to Bonnie for final comments and a wrap up.
Well, I wanted to do some Q&A time. And so I want to take just a couple minutes to do that before we wrap up, because there's some great questions here. And so I've tried to answer a few in the Q&A, but I want to make sure people get some answers here as time permits. And with regard to the BCDC requirement that the parking be taken out at the new ADA improved and accessible park, it is, the question was whether the BCDC could perhaps make an exception to requiring a dedicated bike line there. And this is something that we are certainly encouraging the county look at. This is a county project. They began the project and after getting into it, they found out that this was going to be required by the BCDC. So we're looking at solutions. We're trying to work with the county to find solutions. And unfortunately, BCDC made their permit contingent upon providing a dedicated bike lane. So we're hoping to turn it into a win-win situation. We don't know if that's possible, but dedicated bike lanes certainly have their advantages for bicyclists, and we hope to have bicyclists be safe and parking available and have this fully accessible to people with disabilities. So that's our goal. We're going to work on that. And I hope that we can report something to the community on that and make some progress. We wanted to talk about the mosquito issue, but that is something we really are exploring now that we'll have to do a separate report on that. We did contact the county about that, and they're going to look into it and we're going to report back. So as far I'm sorry, with regard to some of the median issues and maintenance issues that involve the roadway, I'm afraid Kevin would be the one to answer. We can't get him online at the moment right now. We'll try and answer that privately if you have specific questions on some of those things. With regard to the question that was posted about the council representative for the Montecito Center Terrapin area and the San Rafael Canal and dredging, what's the status? Those are very interesting questions we don't have time to answer. I'd love to have our elected representatives tackle that. I don't know whether either Maribeth or Kate can jump on here to address those issues. I realize that the Montecito Center and Terrapin area may involve different representatives on the council. The canal runs right in between the representation of two different council members, the actual canal. Maribeth or Kate, if you're able to jump back in. I don't know if they're
not actually on as a panelist at this point, but I can try to elevate.
Sorry, maybe anyway. We'll try and broach those questions at another time. They're fascinating issues. And as was already stated, the crosswalk issues will be dealt with in a special meeting. As to the question posted about the fee waivers for gas turn-off valves, that's something that the disaster prep committee has asked both the city and the county to consider, to encourage people to get these shut-off valves installed in the event of an earthquake. It's a safety matter. I think both are being considered, and for various reasons they are still under consideration, but not moving forward at this time, to my knowledge. So I believe that addresses most of the questions. I answered a couple privately, and I hope that we addressed as many issues as we could pack into this community meeting today. One thing I do want to say is I want to thank the community members for being so engaged, for being so involved, and being so supportive of the coalition. There are some very generous donors that have really helped support us, and we are a nonprofit, and we really appreciate everybody's support. And in so many ways, the financial support and your volunteerism and coming out for Wheaton Hills or showing up at our meetings and giving us your input. We have a wonderful community. We're glad to be a part of it. And we've been doing this for over 20 years now, having our annual meetings, which is a great way to connect. And I hope we can do it in person in the future. And I'm glad that we're able to provide the closed captioning that we did today for our live presentations. I'm sorry we can't do that on our recordings, but we want to be as inclusive as we can and make this easy for folks during this COVID time where we can't get together in person. So I'm grateful to you, Alan, for helping us put together this webinar. And I think that is the end of our time today. And again, thank you to everyone, for our participants, our panelists, our honorees, and our neighbors. Until next time.